In the world of business, few names command as much respect and recognition as Coca-Cola, but behind its iconic logo and secret recipe lies a story of betrayal and corporate espionage that could rival any thriller. Meet Joya Williams, a seemingly loyal employee with access to Coca-Cola's most guarded secrets. In 2006, driven by financial desperation, she ventured into the dangerous game of selling trade secrets to rival Pepsi. What followed was a high-stakes sting operation that would reveal the dark underbelly of corporate rivalry. In 2006, Coca-Cola was not just another brand but a global icon, renowned for its distinctive branding and a recipe that had been a well-guarded secret for over a century. In the vast corporate world, Coca-Cola stood as one of the most valuable and recognized companies, with billions of dollars in revenue and a reputation for quality and trust that few could rival. This secret recipe was a part of Coca-Cola's heritage and its most prized asset. The marketing team at Coca-Cola held access to some of the company's deepest secrets, especially regarding product formulas, marketing strategies, and future project details. Joya Williams, a member of this exclusive team, worked as an administrative assistant in the marketing division at Coca-Cola's headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. As an assistant, her role was crucial because she dealt directly with high-level executives and had access to sensitive internal information that only a few in the company could view. Williams was known as a diligent and efficient worker who had been with the company for several years, building a reputation as a reliable employee. She handled everything from confidential documents to internal communications and attended various meetings, gathering insights into the company's strategic plans and future product launches. Her job wasn't directly creative, but it required a high level of trust, loyalty, and confidentiality. Williams's background was relatively standard. She had no history of criminal activities and seemed to blend in as just another employee who took her job seriously. Despite her seemingly regular life and straightforward job, Williams had a unique level of access. She often handled classified documents about product development, marketing plans, and, sometimes, the very recipe elements that were the backbone of Coca-Cola's iconic beverages. This exposure was only meant for top executives or trusted personnel, and even then, it was a privilege to hold on to such sensitive information. Coca-Cola maintained strict protocols to prevent unauthorized access, with digital files secured and hard copies kept under lock and key. But even with these security measures in place, Williams' role in the marketing division allowed her to bypass certain layers of security, giving her a behind-the-scenes look at Coca-Cola's most guarded data. As a member of Coca-Cola's inner operations, Williams witnessed firsthand the intense rivalry with Pepsi, the company's biggest competitor. Coca-Cola and Pepsi had a fierce and storied history, battling each other for global market share and consumer loyalty in a competition that became famously known as the Cola Wars. This rivalry was intense, with each company constantly innovating, launching new products, and investing millions in marketing campaigns to outdo the other. For years, Coca-Cola and Pepsi had pushed the limits of advertising and product development to stay ahead, and their competition shaped the entire soft drink industry. Williams was acutely aware of this rivalry, as it was discussed in team meetings and internal communications. Coca-Cola's employees understood that their company's market dominance relied heavily on the confidentiality of its strategies and formulas, making security a top priority. Although Williams' career appeared stable on the surface, there were signs that all was not well in her personal life. Financial stress and personal dissatisfaction seemed to be simmering beneath the surface, although her colleagues weren't aware of it. Despite her job security and steady income, Williams reportedly faced financial pressures that may have contributed to the drastic decision she would eventually make. It's unclear whether Coca-Cola's management noticed any signs of Williams's distress or whether her demeanor ever hinted at any inner conflict. On the outside, she was a model employee, performing her duties without any apparent issues, making it easy for others to trust her with the company's secrets. In this high-stakes environment, Joya Williams' unique access and her seemingly harmless position would ultimately lead to one of the most bizarre espionage cases in corporate history, as Coca-Cola would soon find itself blindsided by one of its own employees, a person they had trusted with their most valuable secrets. There was another side to Joya Williams' story, one driven by personal financial stress that had begun to weigh heavily on her mind. Reports suggest that she may have been under significant financial pressure, which she tried to keep hidden from her colleagues. She reportedly felt constrained by her income, and in her mind, The opportunity to leverage Coca-Cola's secrets for profit seemed to offer a way out of her financial troubles. Williams was aware of the high value of Coca-Cola's trade secrets, which were closely guarded for a reason. They were the foundation of the company's market dominance, particularly in the fierce competition with Pepsi. However, despite understanding the value and risks, Williams reached a point where the potential for fast money began to outweigh her sense of loyalty and ethics. It was during this time that she reached out to two accomplices to help her execute a plan to sell Coca-Cola's secrets to Pepsi. With her access to classified information, Williams believed that she could extract certain documents that would be valuable enough to attract a high price. These documents contained proprietary formulas and details of upcoming marketing campaigns that were meant to maintain Coca-Cola's edge in the industry. She believed that Pepsi, as Coca-Cola's closest competitor, would be willing to pay handsomely for this insider knowledge, potentially giving them an edge in the cola wars by allowing them to predict and counter Coca-Cola's moves. Williams began smuggling out documents and samples, storing them in her possession until she could find a buyer. She connected with her accomplices, who agreed to assist her in the deal with Pepsi, aiming to secure a lucrative payout that could resolve her financial issues. However, this action was more than just a risky move. It was a breach of trust that would have far-reaching consequences. Williams's choice to act on her plan and engage her accomplices was driven largely by a desire for quick money, and she was willing to disregard Coca-Cola's trust and the potential risks to her own career. By this point, she had rationalized that the rewards outweighed the dangers, believing that the sale of these documents would be a smooth transaction. Her accomplices, both of whom had their own motivations for participating, were prepared to act as intermediaries and make contact with Pepsi to negotiate the sale. The plan began to take shape as the group assembled a collection of files and samples that they believed would prove valuable to a competitor. Williams had access to formula details and future project insights that could have allowed Pepsi to predict Coca-Cola's strategies months in advance, essentially giving them a cheat sheet in their competitive race. The scheme in her mind was simple: gather the information, contact Pepsi, and exchange it for a financial reward that would set her on a new path, away from the constraints of her existing financial issues. But as she plotted her plan, she overlooked one critical factor: the ethical stance of Pepsi itself. In her rush to execute this scheme, Williams assumed that Pepsi would be willing to buy confidential Coca-Cola information without question. But this miscalculation would ultimately be her undoing. She viewed the potential profit as a lifeline, one that could rescue her from financial strain. Meanwhile, she convinced her accomplices that the risk was worth taking, given the potential payoff. Together, they contacted Pepsi with an offer, unaware that Pepsi's response would not align with their expectations. Joya Williams and her accomplices believed they had orchestrated a perfect plan to sell Coca-Cola's secrets, and their next step was to find a willing buyer. Naturally, their target was PepsiCo, Coca-Cola's most prominent competitor in the global market. PepsiCo and Coca-Cola had been locked in intense rivalry for decades, in what was famously known as the Cola Wars, a competition that had fueled aggressive marketing campaigns, brand loyalty battles, and ongoing product innovations. Williams assumed that PepsiCo would be eager to gain any advantage it could over Coca-Cola, especially if it involved confidential insights into Coca-Cola's product formulations, future marketing strategies, and even samples of upcoming products. With this in mind, Williams and her accomplices set out to make contact with PepsiCo, hoping their confidential information would translate into a lucrative payout. Her main accomplice, who served as the middleman, contacted PepsiCo's corporate headquarters, making an anonymous offer to sell Coca-Cola's sensitive documents and product samples in exchange for a substantial sum. In her mind, this transaction seemed foolproof, believing that PepsiCo, as Coca-Cola's biggest competitor, would have a strong motive to pay handsomely for inside information. However, what Williams didn't anticipate was PepsiCo's strong commitment to ethical business practices, especially when it came to corporate espionage. When PepsiCo received the message from Williams' accomplice offering to sell Coca-Cola's secrets, they immediately recognized the potential legal and ethical risks associated with the offer. PepsiCo's legal and corporate ethics team was quick to recognize that participating in such a transaction would not only violate business ethics, but could also lead to severe legal repercussions. Instead of taking the bait, PepsiCo chose to notify Coca-Cola directly about the suspicious offer, thereby refusing to engage in the corporate espionage plot that Williams and her accomplices had hoped would be profitable. As soon as PepsiCo received the offer, their legal department promptly reached out to Coca-Cola, informing them about the attempted sale of proprietary information. PepsiCo provided Coca-Cola with details of the interaction, including copies of the messages sent by Williams's accomplice, alerting them to the potential security breach within their own company. This surprising turn of events left Williams and her team of accomplices completely blindsided. Instead of the quick payout they anticipated, they now found themselves on the radar of not only Coca-Cola's internal security team, but also federal authorities, as Coca-Cola immediately sought assistance from the FBI to investigate the attempted espionage. The FBI launched a thorough investigation into the case, focusing on the identities of the individuals involved and the exact nature of the information they were attempting to sell. Working closely with Coca-Cola's internal security team, the FBI devised a strategy to gather evidence against Williams and her accomplices. They arranged a sting operation, posing as representatives from a third-party company interested in purchasing Coca-Cola's trade secrets. Unaware that they were being watched, Williams and her accomplices continued their efforts to finalize the deal, providing what they thought were valuable Coca-Cola documents and product samples to undercover agents posing as potential buyers. These documents included details about Coca-Cola's future products, marketing plans, and other proprietary information, all of which Williams had managed to steal from her access to the company's confidential files. Throughout the sting operation, Williams and her accomplices provided incriminating evidence against themselves, including recorded conversations, email exchanges, and even physical documents that were handed over to the undercover agents. In these exchanges, Williams was confident that her knowledge of Coca-Cola's secrets would bring in substantial rewards, and she shared additional details in each meeting, eager to prove the value of the information she was offering. The FBI agents carefully documented each interaction, building a strong case against Williams and her accomplices, while ensuring that Coca-Cola's sensitive information remained secure. Every meeting, every email, and every document shared by Williams served as further evidence of her involvement, giving law enforcement all the proof they needed to prosecute her for corporate espionage and theft of trade secrets. Undercover FBI agents contacted Joya Williams and her accomplices, posing as representatives from a fictitious company interested in purchasing Coca-Cola's secrets. This sting operation was meticulously planned to make Williams and her associates believe that they had found a serious buyer. The undercover agents worked hard to build credibility, discussing the supposed buyer's eagerness to obtain proprietary information on Coca-Cola's products and strategies. Unaware that she was dealing with federal agents, Williams fell into the trap, providing them with samples and documents to demonstrate the value of the information she held. She handed over several confidential materials, including Coca-Cola's upcoming product formulations, future marketing plans, and other critical trade secrets. Each exchange provided the FBI with substantial evidence, which would later be used to prosecute Williams and her accomplices. The FBI's operation was successful in obtaining a full account of the extent of Williams' involvement and the level of her access within Coca-Cola. Williams appeared confident, detailing the secretive processes and proprietary data she had access to within the company. She offered insights into Coca-Cola's planned product launches and marketing initiatives, clearly demonstrating her intent to profit from selling these secrets. Each meeting with the undercover agents strengthened the FBI's case as Williams, believing her actions were undetected, continued to provide more and more details. These recorded interactions, physical documents, and evidence of her intent were gathered meticulously by the agents. Coca-Cola's internal security team worked alongside the FBI, ensuring that all critical information remained secured, while giving the agents enough leeway to let Williams incriminate herself further. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola's management was profoundly impacted by the betrayal. Williams had worked closely with many top executives, and her role had granted her significant access to confidential files, creating a complex situation for the company. The realization that one of their own employees was attempting to sell sensitive information felt like a breach of trust, sparking both disappointment and urgency within Coca-Cola's leadership. The company immediately reviewed its security policies and access protocols, looking for weaknesses that allowed such a breach. Coca-Cola executives knew that the damage Williams could have caused was enormous. Their trade secrets were a large part of what kept Coca-Cola ahead in the competitive beverage market. They worked closely with the FBI, remaining fully cooperative and providing any support necessary to ensure Williams' arrest and prosecution. As part of the sting, the FBI requested additional documents from Williams to keep her engaged and increase the evidence against her. She responded by stealing even more information from Coca-Cola's archives, further implicating herself. Eventually, the FBI had gathered sufficient proof of Williams' illegal activities, including recorded conversations, emails, and the stolen documents she had handed over. With a solid case built, they moved to make the arrests. Joya Williams and her two accomplices were taken into custody, marking the culmination of a carefully orchestrated investigation by Coca-Cola's security team and the FBI. The arrest sent shockwaves through Coca-Cola's corporate structure and quickly made headlines as news of the insider betrayal spread. Coca-Cola's leadership addressed the incident publicly, affirming that justice had been served and that Williams' actions would not go unpunished. The betrayal was a severe breach of corporate ethics, but Coca-Cola's swift action alongside law enforcement reassured investors, partners, and customers that the company was dedicated to protecting its proprietary information. This high-stakes sting operation served as a learning moment for Coca-Cola, leading the company to reevaluate its internal security measures to prevent similar threats in the future. Once the FBI had enough evidence to implicate Joya Williams and her accomplices in the attempted sale of Coca-Cola's trade secrets, the authorities swiftly moved forward with legal proceedings. The case, now a high-profile example of corporate espionage, drew attention from media outlets across the country, as Coca-Cola's global reputation and PepsiCo's ethical choice to report the attempted sale made it a unique story. Williams, along with her accomplices, faced charges of wire fraud and unlawfully stealing and attempting to sell trade secrets. The FBI's detailed investigation and the extensive evidence they had gathered left little room for the defense. Williams had openly shared sensitive company documents and product samples with undercover agents, unknowingly building an airtight case against herself. Her recorded conversations, emails, and the physical documents she had handed over were undeniable proof of her intent and actions, sealing her fate in court. During the trial, prosecutors highlighted the depth of Williams' betrayal. As a trusted administrative assistant, she had been given access to Coca-Cola's most guarded secrets, with the expectation that she would handle this responsibility with discretion and loyalty. Her attempt to profit from these secrets was a clear violation of her duties and an example of the dangers of insider threats in large corporations. The court learned that Williams had not acted alone, but her role as the Coca-Cola employee at the center of the operation made her the primary focus of the prosecution. She had willingly stolen information she knew could severely harm Coca-Cola's market position if it fell into the wrong hands, a fact that weighed heavily against her in the proceedings. The defense attempted to argue that Williams had been under financial stress and had made a desperate decision, but the overwhelming evidence made it difficult to sway the jury. Prosecutors argued that Williams had acted out of greed, not necessity, as her role at Coca-Cola was well compensated, and she had chosen to betray her employer out of ambition for a quick payout. The FBI's sting operation was presented in detail, showing how Williams had confidently shared information without hesitation, believing she was speaking with genuine buyers rather than undercover agents. Every recorded interaction pointed to her clear intent to profit at Coca-Cola's expense, reinforcing the prosecution's case that this was a premeditated act of betrayal, not a momentary lapse of judgment. Her accomplices, while also facing charges, were portrayed as secondary players in comparison to Williams, who had initiated and facilitated the entire plan by leveraging her position within Coca-Cola. The judge and jury deliberated over the clear-cut evidence and the seriousness of Williams' crime. Her actions represented a direct threat to Coca-Cola's proprietary information, and the betrayal of a trusted employee shook the company to its core. In the end, Williams was found guilty on all counts, a verdict that many saw as justified, given the extent of her betrayal and the potential harm her actions could have caused if PepsiCo hadn't intervened. She received a significant prison sentence, serving as a message to others about the consequences of corporate espionage. Her accomplices also faced penalties, though their sentences were lesser, as Williams was the mastermind behind the operation and the one who had actual access to Coca-Cola's secrets. The case concluded with a firm stance against corporate theft and reinforced the legal consequences of trying to sell sensitive information for personal gain. The sentencing was widely reported, with Coca-Cola releasing a statement expressing relief that justice had been served and appreciation for PepsiCo's cooperation in exposing the plot. After the shocking betrayal by Joya Williams, Coca-Cola faced not only legal challenges, but also a significant reputational test. This scandal had put the company's internal security protocols in the spotlight, as the public and business community questioned how such a sensitive breach could happen within an iconic brand trusted worldwide. Coca-Cola's reputation relied heavily on the secrecy of its formulas, marketing strategies, and future product plans, elements that gave it a competitive edge in the industry. The idea that an employee had nearly succeeded in selling these secrets to a rival underscored a vulnerability that Coca-Cola couldn't afford to ignore. Determined to restore trust and ensure their corporate secrets were safe, Coca-Cola's leadership moved quickly to implement enhanced security measures and address any flaws that might leave room for future breaches. The company undertook a comprehensive review of its internal policies and access protocols, aiming to strengthen the way sensitive information was handled and protected. Coca-Cola's executives understood that merely punishing Williams was not enough. They needed to reinforce the trust of their employees, stakeholders, and the global public. To begin with, Coca-Cola restructured how they managed confidential data, establishing new layers of restricted access. Only a minimal number of high-ranking, carefully vetted employees could access critical information about the company's formulas and future products. Additionally, Coca-Cola adopted stringent background checks for employees handling sensitive data, tightening hiring standards to ensure trustworthiness and integrity in roles that required access to confidential materials. Beyond the initial security reforms, Coca-Cola invested in advanced digital security systems designed to monitor and control the flow of information within the organization. The breach had highlighted how traditional security measures weren't enough to prevent insider threats. The new systems included state-of-the-art encryption for all sensitive files and introduced multi-factor authentication for employees accessing confidential databases. Coca-Cola also began tracking data access points more closely, enabling them to identify any unusual activity instantly. This digital overhaul allowed the company to detect any potential leaks or suspicious behavior early, reducing the risk of future breaches like the one involving Williams. In addition to technical upgrades, Coca-Cola focused on creating a culture of integrity and transparency among employees. The company introduced mandatory training programs that emphasized ethical behavior, loyalty, and corporate responsibility. Coca-Cola wanted to ensure that every employee understood the importance of protecting the company's trade secrets and the severe consequences of corporate espionage. These programs included real-world scenarios and case studies, with the story of Joya Williams used as a primary example of what could happen when an employee compromised the company's values. Coca-Cola hoped that by openly addressing this case with their workforce, they could reinforce the importance of loyalty and deter any potential insider threats in the future. The aftermath of the Coca-Cola espionage case did not just impact Coca-Cola. PepsiCo, too, found itself under intense scrutiny. Although PepsiCo had taken an ethical stand by informing Coca-Cola of the suspicious offer, the incident cast a shadow over the company's image, as the public wondered if PepsiCo might have been tempted by the confidential information. Internally, PepsiCo's management understood the sensitivity of the situation and took immediate steps to reaffirm their commitment to ethical practices. Their legal and public relations teams carefully crafted a message that highlighted their integrity in handling the incident and positioned PepsiCo as a responsible and trustworthy competitor. PepsiCo's decision to report the incident rather than exploit it for competitive gain was, in fact, celebrated as an example of corporate ethics, earning them positive attention in business and ethics circles. Many saw PepsiCo's actions as a benchmark for corporate responsibility, especially in a competitive industry where trade secrets are highly valuable. PepsiCo's leadership used the situation as an opportunity to emphasize their ethical values across the organization. They wanted to make it clear that, in a company as large and influential as PepsiCo, integrity was paramount, even in the face of potential gains. This stance helped to reinforce the company's internal code of conduct, reminding employees that ethical behavior was non-negotiable. PepsiCo executives held a series of internal meetings and training sessions to discuss the incident, underlining the importance of ethical decision-making and reminding employees of the company's commitment to fairness and respect for competition. Through these sessions, PepsiCo aimed to not only commend their employees for upholding their values, but also to ensure that every employee understood the importance of integrity, regardless of the circumstances. Additionally, PepsiCo took steps to review and strengthen its internal protocols to prevent any misunderstandings or lapses in ethical judgment in the future. They implemented more rigorous controls on how employees handle external inquiries and conduct business dealings, particularly when dealing with sensitive information. Externally, PepsiCo's leadership also addressed the situation with stakeholders and the media, framing the incident as an example of their dedication to ethical competition. Public statements from PepsiCo executives reassured investors, customers, and business partners that the company valued fair play and upheld a high standard of corporate ethics. By choosing ethics over exploitation, PepsiCo set a powerful example within the industry, proving that a company's success could be built not only on competitive strategies, but on the strength of its moral principles.